I want you to look at the building over here, which we're standing in front of it. It consists of 2 floors, 2 stories. All right? The upper floor consists of 2 rooms. We point it to be the place where Jesus had his Passover meal and where he appeared to his disciples after the resurrection. The first floor, we point it to be the place where Jesus washed the feet of his disciples and where Pentecost took place at. In addition to this, we have the tomb of David in the first floor. Of course, if you put really the 2 places together, it doesn't fit. So try to remember that so when we go to a quieter spot and talk about it. But once again, look at the size of the stones which are in use at the first rows. These stones come from the temple, used by the early Christians when they came and built the first house of prayer on Zion. So let's go to a quieter place and try to explain all this. My first reading is going to be from the Gospel of John, chapter 13. And it says, "It was just before the Passover festival. Jesus knew that the hour had come for him to leave this world and go to the Father. Having loved his own who were in the world, he loved them to the end. The evening meal was in progress, and the devil had already prompted Judas, the son of Simon Iscariot, to betray Jesus. Jesus knew that the Father had put all things under his power, and that he had come from God and was returning to God. So he got up from the meal, took off his outer clothing, and wrapped a towel around his waist. After that, he poured water into a basin and began to wash his disciples' feet, drying them with the towel that he wrapped around him. He came to Simon Peter, who said to him, 'Lord, are you going to wash my feet?' Jesus replied, 'You do not realize now that what I'm doing, but later you will understand.' 'No,' said Peter, 'you shall never wash my feet.' Jesus answered, 'Unless I will wash you, you have no part with me.' Then Lord, Simon Peter replied, 'Not just my feet, but my hands and my head as well.' Jesus answered, 'Those who have had a bath need only to wash their feet. All right? Their whole body is clean, and you are clean, thou not every one of you.' For he knew who was going to betray him, and that was why he said not everyone was clean. When he had finished washing their feet, he put on his clothes and returned to his place. 'Do you understand what I have done for you?' he asked them. 'You call me teacher and Lord, and rightly so, for that is what I am. Now that I, your Lord and teacher, have washed your feet, you also should wash one another's feet. I have set you an example that you should do as I have done for you. Very truly I tell you, no servant is greater than his master, nor is a messenger greater than the one who sent him. Now that you know these things, you will be blessed if you do them.'" I would say Jesus had his Passover meal on a Wednesday Eve. He was arrested on a Thursday morning, and he was crucified on a Friday. Typically, traditionally, I believe this is what you have in your church, just like I have in my church. We always put it that he had his Passover meal on a Thursday, he was arrested on a Friday morning, and he was crucified on Friday morning. Correct or not? Yes? Don't we all celebrate it this way?
Yes.
Well, in the Gospels, actually, we hear about a contradiction, notice right now my words carefully, between 2 Gospels regarding of the Passover meal. Between John and Mark, where each one of them gives a different number of days for the Passover, from the time that Jesus walked Palm Sunday. There's no contradiction whatever in the Bible. There was never a contradiction. But people usually tend not to know that in Jerusalem, there were 2 Passovers celebrated. By the Jews, and by another group which lived in Jerusalem called the Essenes. The Essenes had a different calendar than the Jewish calendar. Up till today, the Jewish calendar, it's lunar solar. That's why usually you follow up the Jewish holidays, they rotate. Next door, about a block away from here, that's where we have the ruins of the house of Annas. 2 blocks down the street, where the bus have dropped us, nearby, that's where we have the ruins of the house of Caiaphas. Logically, Jesus would not be coming through the city passing by the house of Caiaphas, by the house of Annas, who already they were looking for him. to have his Passover meal. That's why earlier I took you, and George of course followed us, and we went down to Gehenna, and I pointed for you the ascent which they did up to Mount Zion, coming through Gehenna, bypassing the city. How do we know they had it amid their scenes? In Luke we read, Jesus said, you go down to the water, to the spring, which is way down in the city of David. You'll find over there 2 men. Tell them the master have sent us. Where is he going to have his meal? Men don't carry water. That's women's job. Unless if they practice celibacy. Essenes. Jesus comes up. Essenes emphasize a lot on the purity of the body. Up till today, according to Leviticus actually, you're not allowed to eat unless if you wash your hands first. That's why Peter said, you can wash my hands and my head also. Well, you've already been bathed. I don't need to go, because they immerse themselves, then they come up over here, and yes, once they came and knocked on the door, they opened it for them. The master, the owner of the house, would have asked them, did you wash your body? Yes. Wash your feet from the dust of the road. That's where the washing of the feet comes from. And then they go up for the seder meal. On the table, what there will be? Bitter herbs, water with salt, roasted meat, of course, of the sacrifice at the temple. That's usually what will be on the table, plus, of course, unleavened bread, what they call matzah. Now, let's go to the setting of the table. Jesus in the middle, let's say. Peter on one hand, Judas on the other. Okay, Judas, John, then Peter. Okay, and the star of the evening is the youngest, John. Always there's an empty seat. That's for Elijah. And usually keep the door open, because everyone's supposed to be participating in that meal. Let's say you're a Gentile, you pass by, you want to go in, they should welcome you, because it is the feast of redemption. When it comes all the way to the third cup, before that, that's usually where you take the bread and the herbs and you dip it in the salty water. The one who's dipping his hands in my plate is going to betray me. Judas does not participate in the third cup, which is, I will redeem you with a demonstration of my power. In the redemption, he does not participate. He stands up, he goes to do his deeds, while Jesus carry on with it. Notice, 4 cups they drank from, the 5th they don't touch it. After this they go on, they end it usually with Hilim. That's the singing of Psalms from 113 to 118. What about the 5th cup? Why Jesus? That's called Elijah's cup. Elijah, if he shows up, he should be taking that one and raise it up. Jesus does not touch it. Isn't he more powerful than Elijah? Yes, he is. Why he does not touch that cup? Because he is the 5th cup. He poured himself for our sake on the cross, and that's the symbolism of that one, the ultimate sacrifice, and that's why he does not touch the 5th cup, even though he had the power, because simply enough, through his blood, we were saved. This is the Passover meal which would have taken place over here, where today it is occupied by that building, because yes, the early Christians who abandoned Jerusalem in the year 69 AD, seeing what's coming up, because Jesus talking about the destruction of the city, they come back to the city after it was destroyed, and this is where they built the first church, which they have called it the Mother Church of Zion. Hagia Zion, the Mother Church of Zion, and yes, this is where the first church stood, where we're standing right now. This is the place where Jesus appeared to his disciples, once without Thomas and the second with Thomas. This is the place where the Holy Spirit came on Jesus' disciples. On which feast? The Pentecost. That's when Moses received the Torah. All this would have taken place within the same complex, within the same building, which would have stood over here.
وإيماننا بربنا ولا شيء في الدنيا يهزه والمر في عنا ده شك قابلينه علشان اسمه وإيماننا بربنا ولا شيء في الدنيا يهزه